Hello and welcome to the Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about and answering a question from the audience on what steps can individuals take to critically analyze media messages and resist the divisive narratives being perpetuated. And so to start off with, this is really my kind of area since I'm an industrial and organizational psychologist. We focus on understanding how to get people to do various things, how to influence them, how to get them to take a job, how to get them to stay at a job, how to get them to be happy and productive at a job, etc., etc. And so it's our job to understand how to persuade people. And so I would suggest the first thing is to just be aware that the media and entertainment, they're not there to give you just straight facts. I don't even understand how that would work because people really can't convey information in a way that is non-biased. They have their own lenses through which they view the world. And so every single media and entertainment story that you're going to be hearing is brought to you through at least one person's perspective. Usually it goes through multiple people before it actually reaches your ears, but it goes through at least one person's perspective, and you have to be aware that there are biases that every single individual has. So me talking to you right now, there are biases I have, there are ways I'm conveying information, even if it's completely factual information. There are ways I'm conveying information that will, I hope, persuade you to believe what I'm saying. And will hopefully persuade you that I'm right with the information I'm conveying to you. And so everyone has that. Everyone has ways of conveying information where they're trying to get you to buy into that information. And it's just a natural thing that absolutely every single person does. So when you hear someone tell you that they're unbiased, this is completely factual reporting, just tune them out because they're lying to you, or they're lying to themselves, or both, where everyone has certain biases that they bring to the table. And so just be aware of that. That's the first thing to really think about, to consider when it comes to resisting any type of narrative and critically analyzing media messages. I would recommend everyone, no matter what field you're in, to be knowledgeable about psychology in general and how the human mind works, because at the end of the day, these people recognize the importance of the social and behavioral sciences, and they're using that in order to convey information in a way that is effective at getting their messages across. Remember, a lot of these media organizations aren't even making money anymore. They are losing money, but because they're the propaganda arm of wealthy elites, they're allowed to lose money and still stay in business. So be aware that ideally they would make money, but their job is to use psychology to persuade you in certain ways. They want to get your mind to think about their products, their services, what messages they're trying to sell you. They want you to buy into that as much as possible. And so just be aware of psychology. And there's a ton of resources online for that. You can watch psychology lecture series. Dr. Jordan Peterson has a few of those. There's a lot of different psychology free courses online that you can watch. And I've watched a ton of them from various places: Harvard, MIT, Stanford, all these places. They're really cool bearded person talking about like biological psychology or something like that. I can't remember. I think he was like from Stanford, but it was a really cool lecture series. I've actually watched it twice now, and I just feel like I learned something every time. But yeah, you can always learn more about psychology, and I would recommend learning online instead of learning at an actual institution anymore, because academic institutions are just a complete mess. But yes, definitely learn psychology if you want to be able to critically analyze media messages and resist being persuaded of information that you don't want to be persuaded of. Also understand specific persuasion, influence, manipulation techniques, how people work to get you to buy into things. I'm, in general, just really resistant to any narratives in general. I'm just a kind of rebellious person, and so a lot of the persuasion techniques that seem to work on other people just do not work on me. there's some really interesting techniques, like one I just called the line experiment. I think it's Ash experiment, ASCH, but I could be wrong about who the author of it was. But they had various people look at different sized lines. And everyone in the room except for one person was a Confederate. And a Confederate means that they're working with the researchers. And everyone went through these lines and said that one of the shorter lines was actually the longest line. And the person who was an actual subject, an actual participant, and not a Confederate, typically would go along with what the Confederate said about the shorter lines being the longest line instead of the longest line. And so what that kind of tells you is that people are extremely persuaded, even if their vision is telling them that another line is the longest, because everyone else went along with the shorter line being the longest, they also went along with it. And for some reason that works on a lot of people. It doesn't work on me. I'm fine with completely disagreeing with an entire room of people. I think to a certain extent that's probably arrogance, just because of the fact that I believe I'm correct. Even I would just believe everyone else is a moron. If everyone else thinks a shorter line is the longest, I would have no problem just calling an entire room of people a moron. Morons, plural. But yeah, so be aware of those various techniques such as consensus and peer pressure and things like that that can influence you to believe certain messages. And various media entertainment organizations do this all the time to make you believe a certain message. And so once you're aware of those, hopefully you'll have a greater ability to resist those manipulations. Understand critical thinking techniques, so figure out exactly how you can take apart information to see if it's accurate or not. And some people just like believe information automatically once they hear it, and because I think they just turn off their brain and they just absorb whatever is being told to them, because like they're almost like a Hermione from Harry Potter, where like everything that's written down must be true. Just to give you a funny story about like how a lack of critical thinking can make people believe really stupid things. The New York Times, there were these two authors, and I'll actually probably do a segment on this. I still have it saved on my phone. There's a New York Times article where the first sentence of the first paragraph of this article was talking about how it's something along the lines of China is really happy about the Ukraine-Russia war because the war is far away from Asia. And it just like the amount of stupidity it took at the New York Times for someone to actually state that was just mind-boggling. Russia, where all of their country, aside from the western most portions over the Ural Mountains, all of it is in Asia, aside from that westernmost portion. They're saying that that is far away from Asia, and so China would be happy that this war is far away from Asia. It's just mind-boggling stupidity you find within the first sentence of a New York Times article, clearly without any understanding about how most of Russia is literally within Asia. But yeah, that's just the kind of thing where like, if your brain is turned off and you don't know anything about world geography and like where places are, you could be like, oh yeah, the Russia-Ukraine war, that's definitely far away from Asia. But if you're like a critical thinker and you have some degree of understanding about subjects in general, you're going to be like, wait a minute, I can't believe this got past these two authors for this article, and then also the entire editorial staff just let this literally first sentence of the article go through so they can say that Russia is far away from Asia. Just mind-boggling stupidity. But that is modern news organizations saying that Russia is far away from Asia. And so, yeah, just having some basic critical thinking skills. And then the last thing, to critically analyze media messages and resist divisive narratives, is understanding of special interest groups. There are a lot of interest groups throughout the world and throughout the United States that have an interest in you absorbing certain messages because it benefits them in some way, shape, or form. And just having an understanding about what those major forces throughout the world are that could be leading you or wanting you to be led to believe certain things can be extremely effective in countering, resisting those narratives. And so those are the real 5 points I would give for critically analyzing media and resisting narratives. Be aware of what's going on, that they are trying to persuade you, they're not trying to give you fact-based information. Have an understanding of knowledge, have a knowledge of psychology in general. Have a specific knowledge of persuasion, influence, manipulation techniques. In terms of persuasion, Robert Cialdini's book, CIALDINI. I think his book is actually called Persuasion, but great intro to different persuasion techniques. Critical thinking skills, just like that just comes with experience of taking things apart and really just being a critical person in general. There's a number of critical thinking skills and a number of critical thinking videos and tutorials online if you want further information on various critical thinking skills. And then have a knowledge about the major forces at work to try to get you to believe certain things. And that's really the 5 main points I'd give you for understanding and resisting various narratives throughout the world. And so that's what I'll leave you with today, and thank you for sticking with me. We'll be back with more questions and answers later on. Have a good day.